All right, good evening, and we're reconvening our meeting. We were in a brief recess, so welcome to the April 4th, 2018 regular council meeting. Item number 2 is the confirmation of agenda. Are there any emergent items from any of the councillors? Seeing none from administration? None, thank you. This time I remembered. Item 3, presentations and recognitions. Item 3.1, we have a presentation to Ms. Emma Moore, and I believe Deputy Mayor Sobel will be speaking to that first. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So a short time ago, I was contacted by Cecilia Moore, who was inquiring about who the contact for the school fuel program was at Hope Community Church. As I'm involved with this program, the question was easily answered. Mrs. Moore was kind enough to tell me the reason she needed this contact information. Her daughter, Emma, was looking for someone whom she could present some funds that she had raised for the school fuel program, which provides breakfasts to the Strathmore area schools. Well, if that wasn't impressive enough, I then learned that Emma had just turned 13 years of age and that the check she wanted to donate to school fuel was for $685. I further learned that Emma had been involved in fundraising activities for the last 3 years, and that these events are coordinated with her birthday. In her words, doing fundraisers and supporting charities and projects is a great way to celebrate a birthday. This all started when Emma was 10 years old, awaiting her 11th birthday. On that occasion, she started M's Purse Project. She asked for gently used purses and hygiene products to donate to the local crisis center. Her goal was 11 purses. She ended up getting 100 donated and also collected over $7,000 worth of product. She ended up donating to the Wheatland Crisis Shelter, the Strathmore Overnight Shelter, In From the Cold, and the YYYY Sheriff King Home. As she approached her 12th birthday, Emma's project was M's Bedtime Bundles, where she collected bedtime comforts, a bag with a blanket, stuffed animal, toothbrush, and a reading book for kids in shelter or in foster care. Again, she had an amazing response from the community, mostly through a Facebook social media site called M's Donation Projects. She donated again to the Crisis Center and Woods Homes in Strathmore. Then her most recent project, entitled Hunger Sucks campaign, Emma decided she'd try to raise cash as she felt that this could make a big difference. She found this campaign the most challenging as she realized it's hard to raise money no matter how important the cause. In addition to posting information about this project on her page, Emma also went to her old elementary school, Brentwood, and worked with grade 3 classes to raise money selling suckers. Getting the kids to realize that they were being good citizens and helping the community was an added bonus for Emma. She was invited to speak to the grade 3 classes as well as their school assembly. Wheatland found out about it, and so did the K-1 Montessori classes, and they picked up the campaign as well. This resulted in not only the aforementioned donation to school fuel for $685, but Emma was also able to give checks for the same amount to the Wheatland Food Bank and the Wheatland Crisis Society. In addition to these 3 projects, Emma also discovered last summer that there was a need for hygiene products at the food bank. She discovered that the hampers could only get these products if they were donated due to the high cost of the items. Emma managed to collect and put together 100 individual bags and hygiene products such as shampoo, conditioner, soap, toothbrushes, and toothpaste. Emma's also done a couple of smaller projects for the Seniors Secret Service Christmas Cheer Program and the Veterans Food Bank. Her mom feels the coolest thing about this is that Emma is focused on encouraging other kids to join in with these projects and is getting lots of support and help from her friends. I'm somewhat amazed to reveal that since starting her projects, Emma's raised and donated over $15,000 in cash and product. As I guess I should have suspected, Emma was not overly enthusiastic about attending here tonight. She feels her efforts are simply the right thing to do, and she tends to avoid congratulations and praise. She often says to her parents that if everybody just did a tiny bit, it would be so easy. Words of wisdom from a very generous young lady. I feel privileged to have heard about Emma and her projects. I'm also concerned that I might be a little poorer when the next one comes around, but I can honestly say I'm looking forward to it. I asked Emma to join us here today because I think she deserves a very public thank you for all she's done, and I also felt that this was the best method of spreading her message. And with that, I would ask Miss Emma Moore to come up as council would like to present a small token of our appreciation. Council's going to come up. We also have a little
How are you gonna do that?
you want to hold this? Because I think they want to take the picture. So why don't you get in the middle there, my dear?
Hold it up a little bit more.
Did you want to see It's a little joke. And thank you, Your Worship and Council.
You're welcome. And thank you, Emma. Very unselfish actions over the years. Thank you very much. That brings us to our delegation for tonight, the Platinum Matrix Cheerleading Club. If you have a spokesperson you'd like to have step forward. And welcome to council.
Thank you.
You might like to share.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And when you're ready to speak, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves to us, that would be awesome. Thank you. And welcome to the council meeting.
My name is Haley, and today I have with me Hallie, and then we have most of the cheer team as well. So I have been with Matrix Cheer for 8.5 years now. Since I've been with this team for so long, I've watched younger athletes grow and also my coaches. Without them, we would not be where we are as a team today. They have coached us and pushed us to our limits, which is all paying off. Every year, MCA does at least 2 bottle drives. In our most recent bottle drive, the athletes of Platinum Elite promoted the town of Strathmore by stating, "We are from Strathmore, and we are raising to go to the highest competition our team can attend." We have also gone to local businesses here in Strathmore, promoting the town by stating, "We are from a small town, and we're going to an international competition." Our biggest contribution will be to the gala that we will be holding for the fundraiser. The gala will include an auction as well as information stating why we are holding the auction, where we are from, to whoever attends. The competition that we are going to in Florida is called the Summit. It's held at the ESPN Center in Walt Disney World. As you could imagine, the expenses are very high for 18 athletes attending. Platinum parents, athletes, and coaches have worked very hard to establish the total expenses as well as raise money towards the trip. The estimated total for this competition is $30,000, not including team attire. MCA is asking for financial support to cover the costs for team attire such as jackets and shirts, which will promote the town as well as other businesses that contributed. Team attire can cost up to $300 an athlete, making a total amount of $6,000. But why do we deserve any financial support from the town of Strathmore? Platinum Elite trains for 4.5 hours a week, and we as a cheerleading team are constantly proving that cheers not only is a sport, but is just as athletic as hockey, football, and rugby, maybe even more. While our coaches have worked very hard to come up with fundraisers, Platinum and the Platinum parents have taken it onto ourselves to come to the town, not only for assist, but also to share the awareness of this growing sport. Cheerleading as a whole is very stereotyped, but we are here to prove that we do not cheer at football games. Instead, we compete in international competitions. On behalf of my team, our coaches and parents, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Haley. Deputy Mayor Sobel. Haley, would you mind?
Thanks.
Do you want to come back up to the mic in case some of the councillors have questions? Deputy Mayor Sobel?
Thanks, and I do. So, Haley, you mentioned the gala. Is that the silent auction dinner?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you tell council and everybody else that's out there when this gala is going to be and maybe a few more details if you could on that?
Yeah, so the gala is April 13th. I believe it's 7 p.m., right? 6 p.m.
Okay.
So it's held at Legends, and there will be a dinner, the auction, and then I know that there's going to be a slideshow playing more about platinum and all that kind of stuff. There's information on all the tables about each platinum athlete. And what else is there? Am I missing anything?
Tickets?
Yeah, we have $10 tickets left for the gala, and that's for the auction and for the supper, or just the auction, right? And the dance.
So dinner's sold out?
Yeah.
Well, that's great news. That's good to know. And I have one follow-up, Your Worship. So there's, you mentioned there's a silent auction at that time as well. So are you still looking for silent auction objects to perhaps auction off?
I'm pretty sure we're accepting any kind of silent auction item.
Thanks very much. It was a great presentation, and good luck to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. Are there any other questions or comments?
This level and for being so eloquent as a speaker. I know that must be a little bit nerve-wracking for you, but you've done a great job, and
Thank you.
I wish you all the best from the town and from myself, and it's such a big deal, and my support goes out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other comment? Oh, Councillor Montgomery, sorry.
I just wanted to say congratulations to all of you guys, and congratulations on your hard work as well, so keep it up.
Thank you.
Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. When do you guys go? Sorry, I'm trying to find that in here.
So
said that already.
we fly out on the 2nd of May.
Okay.
And we stay until the 6th of May.
Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or? Thank you, Haley, for your presentation. What we're going to do is take it all in as information and go through it, and we'll talk with administration in the background and see what we can do as we move forward. But we really appreciate your attendance tonight, and the way you spoke was very clear, and we wish you all the best in your fundraising as well as your competition in May. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your Worship?
Yes,
Can
Councillor
we just make a
Peterson.
motion to accept this for information?
Yes,
as
sure.
well? Thank you.
And you're making that motion?
I will, sir.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? The motion is carried. And at this time, to spare the Matrix Cheerleading Club, I'm looking for a motion to go in recess, which will give you time to get out before the rest of the boring meeting starts. So I'm looking for a motion to go into a quick 2-minute recess.
Someone.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. You've heard the motion to go in recess. All in favor? Motion is carried, and we're in a 2-minute recess. And we've just finished with our delegation of the Matrix Cheerleading Club. They have exited. So we're at the confirmation of minutes, item 5.1, the minutes of the March 21st, 2018 regular council meeting. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. You've all heard the motion to accept the minutes of the March 21st, 2018 regular council meeting. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. We have no tabled items, I believe. Jen, correct? Good. So,
Your Worship,
Jason,
I just noticed
Councilor
that in one of the minutes here where it talks about the banger bingo, it actually says banger binger. I don't know if that matters, but that's what I noticed earlier.
we can make that correction. Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Items.
I came back to haunt us again.
Item 7, items from administration. 7.1, the 2018 Census and Citizen survey, which has too many letter S's and S sounds. Jen Sawatsky.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration, at the last council meeting, council chose to conduct a municipal census for 2018 with a starting date of April 15th. At this time, we're bringing the conversation back to council to discuss what kinds of information council would like to collect. We've put at each of councilors' seats sample questions for both the census and the community survey. The census questions are the same questions that we did ask for the last municipal census. It's important to note that any question that we ask in the municipal census, we must have a reason for asking it. And then we also have the community survey questions. We've provided council with a list of questions that we thought may be of interest to council. However, those are completely up for review and approval, and with additions, etc., from council. So this is here for council's discussion.
Thank you, Jen. Are there any comments or suggestions from council regarding the citizen survey? Any questions that you... Deputy Mayor Sobel?
I do have a question, Your Worship, through the chair. Jen, I'm always concerned about the length of some of these surveys and they're being so long that people just give up on them. What are you looking for, or what is your opinion as to how many questions we're looking in regards to the questionnaire?
So, in my opinion, I think that we should have maximum 10 questions in our citizen survey. What you have in front of you are just examples of questions that we can ask.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair, Jennifer. I was approached about a petition, a legal petition. Can we also attach that to this?
I would not suggest that we attach a petition to
It's a petition that affects the community, though.
the survey. I would be hesitant to do that. For a petition, I would say it probably should stand on its own, separate from the census.
Thank you.
If I could just follow that up, Councillor Cox, could you tell us what the petition is concerning?
We were approached by seniors group wanting to know why we can't use the land that's located by the hospital to build on. And they know that Alberta Health Services owns it, but we don't seem to be getting anywhere. So they want to know if a legal petition is a route in which, an avenue in which they think might get us heard, and therefore they thought that every single person in the community would sign their petition.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to see a question on the survey just about the new garbage management programs that we're going to be implementing. I just want to see, like, I guess, proof of general support of the programs, and if we could get into specifics about, even just what bin sizes people prefer, and, like the support towards, say, the recyclables end of the programs as well.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson?
Did you have something in response?
Did you want to add to that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to, didn't we already ask, we sent out a survey asking what sizes they prefer, and we're already implementing it, so what information would we get from that?
This would be just to do, like, mainly with, I guess, the recyclable, seeing as how that's kind of still up in the air, and like I said, it would have to do with bin sizes and just the general community support. If 90% of the community says they don't want to do it, I think we should probably listen to that, whereas if, a majority supports it, we should listen to that as well. But I have heard from people that there is no support in the community, and so I would like to see proof of otherwise, just so that I can say, yeah, look. And not only that, but the survey that we did get, that was, I think, 154 people or something like that, and I don't think that really represents the community. And that was even, like, that just had to do with bin sizes, and that was, I would say, contentious in its result as well, so.
My
So
only
you're-
concern
sorry.
is, though, that Jen's recommending 10 questions. if we're adding a question that's already been approved, like recycling is going ahead, it's been approved. It's not something that's not going to happen.
Councillor Montgomery?
Again, if the community supports it, then I would say, yeah. I don't believe it has been approved yet, and like I said, if the community is not for it, then I would say we should listen to them, so.
Ryan, did you want to make a comment from?
Your worship, with regards to recycling, while it's mentioned sort of in the overall strategy, council hasn't formally approved a blue bin program or anything yet, so that's still solely the purview of this or future councils.
So Councillor Montgomery, would your survey question and deal specifically with the blue recycling project to see if people want to go ahead with that?
Yeah, like I've had a couple of discussions over the last couple of weeks, and the people that I talked to these people were against it, and they were under the impression that there wasn't any community support, and I didn't have anything that I could say, well, look, there is this much support in the community, and so I would like to have, and then this is, I think, the perfect time to do it, because this is going out to the whole community, so I would like to just, I guess, see the actual amount of community support for this program, especially since, as Ryan mentioned, it hasn't been implemented or even confirmed, and there might be a better way to go about it, so.
So just for clarification, your survey question would deal specifically with the blue carts?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, like the other ones I think are done deals, but I think it would be worthwhile getting proof of community support or lack thereof.
Okay, thank you.
For the recycling program.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson, did you have a comment?
A few. Thank
Okay,
you, Your
thank
Worship. In relation to what Councillor Cox spoke about with regards to the seniors, I know that it can't be, included in a census, but I think it would be something really worthwhile to put on a future agenda, because it is something that this council has discussed. And if the seniors were willing to head up that petition process, and they do have a long reach into the community in terms of petitioning, it's definitely something council should consider in the future. We have asked previous governments for that AHS land, and without success, but we have never approached this government. So just, that's off the topic, Your Worship, I apologize, but just following up.
So, sorry, would you like to see that as a separate item?
An agenda
brought to
item
us?
in the future, and I leave it to
Okay.
to our legislative services to know when that would best show up.
Thank you.
And I guess sooner rather than later, because of the hospice issue.
Thank you.
The next, with regards to the community events, I see several questions on this related to community participation and events, and I just want to say that in the last citizen survey that we did, community survey that we did, one of the most useful things for me was to look at the, first of all, we had a tremendous response, but then also to look at the prioritization of citizens across a broad variety of age and experience in terms of what they valued in the community. And being able to take those top 6 or 7 things and look at them with relation to strategic planning, for me, as a councillor, was the very most useful thing that could have been on there. And so I see lots of different wording and things, but I see a huge potential for that, and I'm really, really supportive. In terms of the Blue Bin project, well, I was convinced that we had put that into strategic planning, but maybe not formally into motion. But I am convinced it is a part of our strategic plan. Mm-hmm. And I hear what Councillor Montgomery in that concern, but I think that from a strategic planning perspective and from tax dollar money already expended, that ship may have sailed. And I think that there are some options within that, such as the ones that Councillor Bauer and Sobel have spoke about before in terms of cart size and those kinds of things, and some options for moving within our current strategic plan. But I'm not sure how we could address it. I think it's worthwhile addressing. I just don't know at what level or what capacity, so that we don't set up unrealistic expectations that we can reverse the trend.
Councillor Montgomery?
The reason why I would suggest that it's even worth broaching the topic is because, as you guys are aware, I'm somewhat concerned about, I guess, cost and efficiency of cost. And there's a possibility that the recycling program despite the fact that it looks good, it might make us feel good, might not actually be as efficient or as effective as we might think it is. And it might not actually be worth, we're going to have to look at the actual hard numbers before we decide whether it's actually worth implementing, because as I said, it might feel good to want to do it, but if the end result is not, let's say, a demonstrable kind of positive effect on the environment, then it might not be worth doing. And what I mean by that is, if like, let's say, where the recycling materials are being sent to or what's being done with them is, let's say, less energy efficient. I'm sure some of the people in this room are aware that recycling materials can actually be worse for the environment in some cases than just putting them in the landfill. So I think if the cost happens to be greater and the end result is not as good for the environment as just landfilling the materials at this point in time, then we should probably give consideration to other options. And that's why I said, like I said, if the whole community supports it or if there's kind of overwhelming support, then that's what we do. If the numbers don't add up and then the community as well does not support it in some major way, I think that should give us pause. So I would just like to see a hard number that of the community support for it, please.
I'm wondering if, as we move forward, we could have that blue recycle bin project brought forward for us to discuss. I know we talked about it with Mark and his department with the previous council as far as reducing the amount of tonnage going into the waste stream, into the landfill stream. I was quite sure that we had discovered that it was going to help us as far as our tonnage and our tippage fees at landfills. So I think that was one of the things that drove our previous council to bring the Blue Recycle program going forward. So I'm not sure if I can turn to our CAO and admin if that information specifically dealing with blue bins could be brought forward just as information for us as we move forward. And possibly at the next committee of the whole where it's mainly an information gathering meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. We can bring forward information to council for committee.
Okay, thank you. And Jen, as we move forward, when you look at these, Mark, did you want to weigh in now with something, or?
I don't know if I can bring it next week.
Mm-hmm.
That's next cow. I can definitely bring it for May committee.
Okay.
On that. I think the issue, the plan for Blue was a 3 to 4 year plan. And I think there's a desire by council to bring that in next year. So that was going to be my next thing that I was going to bring forward. But I can definitely bring some of that information on the Blue in terms of tonnage and all that by the May committee.
Okay. Does that tie in with your survey date? It doesn't? Okay. All right. As far as surveying the public, then, it would be very difficult to get their input. I think one of the things that we did as a previous council was we recommended the information given to us in the MGA, and that we're supposed to try to make decisions based on what we think is the best for the majority of citizens in town. And I think that drove us, once we started to get information as far as the cost of the tippage fees and the amount that was going into the garbage and landfill system. So I don't know if that recap helps you, Councillor Montgomery, as far as why the previous council pushed to have the garbage, the green cart, and the blue bin program starting for Strathmore to try to encourage the town to recycle more, to reuse to recycle their produce, as well as cutting down on the amount going into the landfill streams. Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, and so as I said, like if it's the most economically or like efficient way to do it, then I would agree. And so if the tippage fees that we will be saving are going to outweigh the cost of whatever we're paying to manage the recycle yard and to handle the recycling materials, and then as well to ensure that those materials are being recycled in some way that's more energy efficient than just to throw them out, I would agree. And so that's just where I just would like to see the actual numbers. And I have been informed, as Mark said, that the numbers are not readily producible. So I just would like to see those at some point before we jump in totally.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just, can't remember if I sent you or sent administration and council the information that the HEAL committee, the Healthy Eating and Living Coalition, had with regards to the surveys that they had taken that relate to your walking tour or the walking track and the other options. I probably, Tracy would definitely have it, yeah. They had some good, there were some good questions. They were well done. I just thought it'd be worth taking a look at when we move forward. And the other thing, we understand that there's some movement with regards to Southland transportation moving into our community and having some, as transportation was the top issue when TSI did their survey of the community, might be worthwhile including something of that nature. Transportation was, I think, number one.
Yes.
Jennifer, did you want to make?
Your worship, we do have an example question under
Yep.
4. If there's anything other than that, we can connect maybe.
Yeah, but you'll bring it back anyway, so.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Deputy Mayor Sobel.
Just that, I guess a final comment on the recycling issue. I'm not sure how we can continue having this discussion without the presence of our waste management partners in any regard, timetable, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's really crucial that we speak with them and at the end of the day, it's going to be them doing the collecting and the transporting and possibly the recycling. It's really, I think, crucial that if we're going to get more information, they got to be at the table.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. And bringing that back towards administration and staff, is there a chance if you focus specifically on the blue box, we could get some data brought to us at the committee of the whole? I know that's pushing you guys, but if it dealt strictly with the waste stream and the blue recyclables, would that help you as far as information before the survey and census? If it helps to bring the previous information that you brought to the previous council as to why we approved it.
Your Honor,
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to, like Mr. Sobel said, to Councilor Sobel. Sorry. I'd like to talk to the waste management, our provider. They've done lots of recycling programs, so they might be able to add some more information. We've been talking to them even today, so I can see what else information I can do.
Thank you. I think whatever you could bring that previous council had, Councillor Montgomery, you'd be okay with previous information and then possibly a statement from Waste Management? Would that be enough to?
Yeah, I just want to see, I guess, like, I guess it would be nice to know what's happening with the materials, but once they're theirs, they're theirs. But yeah, I would like to know, I guess, what the benefit cost-wise is to us to implement the program, because I expect there should be a cost benefit to us, otherwise it's probably not worth doing.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. So, Jan, if I could just conclude, are you planning to bring us a streamlined version of this survey questionnaire, which will trim down to a more manageable number?
Yes, Your Worship. The important part for this evening is to approve the actual census questionnaire, because we need to have that set up for April 15th. The survey we can discuss further at the Committee of the Whole,
Okay.
but the census questions, I'll need council approval for those this evening, please.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cox?
She has a question relative to the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have a question relative to the survey, Jen, through your worship. I'm a little concerned that there's not a single question for seniors. I don't know what question would be relevant, but I do think that it is lacking.
Yes, so that is, I can expand on that a little bit, knowing the Seniors Advisory Committee will actually be doing their own surveys. So the plan is to attach the seniors survey to the survey as well. So there'll be a separate section for the seniors, and those questions have already been discussed and drafted by the Seniors Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Councillor Cox. Did you want to add a follow-up?
Yeah, is that okay? Through you, Chair. So is it then possible to add another survey based on Jason's questions with respect to the three-bin?
I think we should discuss this further at committee of the whole. I don't want it to be a complicated process for citizens to fill out, otherwise they won't do it. So we need to keep it simple and streamlined as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
I just would move that we approve the census questionnaire as presented, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion
I
which
have a
deals
question.
specifically with the census. Councillor Peterson.
I just have a question. One of the things that I saw on, probably it was CBC, I apologize, Councillor Sobel, but it was questioning in relation to employment status for individuals. And one of the things that they said was critically important in terms of planning for future care and assessment of community was whether or not people had pensionable service and benefits. And I don't know, I know that there's probably no way to include it now. It's probably going to be too unwieldy. But for future, it's something we should really look at, because we're finding through other boards that I sit on as a part of council, that's becoming a major consideration in terms of age care.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. So as you've heard, there's a motion on the floor to approve the 2018 census questionnaire, or census, that's been presented. All in favor? And the motion is carried unanimously. Which brings us to item 7.2, and just as a clarification, staff and admin will be coming forward with some information as far as blue bins and the streamlined questionnaire. Thank you. 7.2, sanitary sewer fats, oils, and grease, the fog management policy, which is on page 15. And Mr. Fisher, welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship, and thank you. This report asks Council to give favorable consideration to the adoption of a fats, oil, and grease and fog policy. I realize that this is probably not the most exciting, dynamic, or high priority item that you've dealt with in a while. It's probably not on the radar, but it is, the sanitary sewer system is rather important for many of the same reasons that you don't worry about the plumbing system until it doesn't work. So, not sure if I need to elaborate.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. No, I think your information that came to us in your request for decision was very thorough, and I think it was very good as far as explaining the procedure as well as the why of why we want to do this and what's definitely needed for our system. Deputy Mayor Sobel.
One question I did have is are there any regulations in regards to when you speak about grease removal devices or GRDs? Is there any regulations in regards to what kind of receptacle this has to be, or
they're pretty common.
I appreciate that.
I've been asking for grid separations in car washes for the better part of 35 years. The exact details is usually something that's spec'd by the civil engineers, and it basically comes out of a book, catalog.
I'm just thinking about what direction would our businesses have in regards to this? Where would they?
Well, the way we would do that is when a development permit application comes in, like for example, for a new restaurant, all other things being equal, we would look at when we review the development permit drawings, and there is some risk of some pushback on that, because anytime we ask for information that we haven't asked for in the past, there's always pushback. But certainly for restaurants, hospitals, senior citizens' homes, assisted living facilities, we're going to be asking for that information. And in most cases, unless it's a spec building, most architects will provide that without question. I mean, they know what the rules are in places like Calgary, so it's just routine.
Thank you. And my next question, and I have two more, I'm sorry. My next question was, what do you have planned in regards to the education and public information?
I haven't
portion of
planned
this?
anything.
Okay.
I'm
All
saying
right,
that's
just
just,
the
that's part of what we have to do, but
All righty, good. And lastly, in 6.1, you talk about periodic inspections and I assume to determine whether or not this program is being successful or not. Have we got anything at a level at this point? Have we got any statistics at all as to what our pipes look like?
well, this has really been, this particular issue, this part of it is due to costs and what EPCOR has been telling us. And, it's one of those things that if you'd asked me 2 months ago about this stuff, I would have said, who cares? And now I realize that when the sewer backs up because there's a large sanitary sewer pipe and it's taking waste not only from restaurants, but from public facilities, and it hits a constriction in the pipe, things go wrong real bad, real quick. And so this is, I'm not making a specific commitment to that in here, but it's something that we think we need to do.
Well, I would just comment for the interest of the public that the current estimate of cost that this incurs is $188,000. So it's no small item. So it's certainly something that's affecting our budget. And the only other comment I would make is it's interesting you would have said that a few weeks ago or a few months ago before you got all this information. I brought this up 8 years ago to someone who was in your position before you, and that was the same answer I got. Not a big deal. I'm glad to know it's a big deal, and I'm glad you're doing something about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. Ryan, did you want to weigh in with something?
Your worship, just with regards to periodic inspections, EPCOR does do an annual hammering of all the pipes.
Okay.
It makes for thrilling footage. But, so that's sort of how that inspection's carried out, is EPCOR does do it. I think they do it next month. Yes, okay, so it's a rolling thing, so yeah, there'll be a bunch done next month, and it's just kind of rolled over.
So I guess if I could,
Yes.
Your Worship, so I'm just trying to find out, how do we know in a year if things have improved? Or 2 years or 3 years?
Your worship,
Your worship, I guess at the end of the day, we're spending $180,000 a year. If we don't have to go out there and remount that sewer, we have certain business sewers that we're doing over and over and again. And some of it is an education. The first thing is to get people to understand there is consequences to the town, and because at the end of the day, we all end up paying that $180,000 through our rates, our sewer rates.
Right.
And if we get that down and we educate them, and then the next part is we'll update the bylaw to actually put some teeth in our bylaw to enable us. If you don't listen to it and you don't do this, then there's got to be consequences where you will have to pay for us if we can prove that issue of sewer is causing the issue.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Montgomery, and then Councillor Cox, and then Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a few questions for whoever would like to field them. So the first one just has to do with the reduction of associated costs. And I guess so it's kind of further to Councillor Sobel's question, but so you guys don't have any idea what could possibly be saved? And I guess will we be able to reduce the frequency of cleaning? Is that, that's kind of the hope, I guess?
I think it's safe to say that the emergency cleanings, that there's an immediate benefit there. I'll be honest with you, I never paid much attention to pouring a quarter cup of cooking grease down the drain, but this has been an education process for me too. And we do have some stuff along the highway and certainly the larger institutions. If we can say, look, and as Mark pointed out, one of the first things we're going to do is write a sanitary bylaw that we can actually enforce with some penalties. And if one of the penalties is nothing more than issuing an order saying, this is a recurring issue. You're here by order to deal with it, and if necessary, I'll put in a grease trap. It may not be unreasonable.
So I guess the savings will be the emergency backup. We shouldn't have as many emergency backups, which we pay out of scope from EPCOR. And then the flushing program we'll be able to do more of our network for the same amount of prep. Right now, you have to flush until you get it clean. If you've got fats and greases, you're spending all your time, the whole day on one pipe, where you could probably do a couple blocks.
Yep.
So we get more of our system clean, we get more efficiency in our overall network. So that will, over time, pay us back.
Okay. And so I guess like I have a few questions, but so what area is problematic and requires quarterly cleaning?
You probably would never guess. So for that reason, I can kind of roughly point to it on the map.
Sure.
General area here.
Oh, really?
And that's because of sanitary pipe from where it comes. Just remember, everything up here all comes down through here. So we have hospital, schools, seniors facilities,
Restaurants.
and restaurants. Then you get a spot where the slope is minimal, and that's where you have the problem.
Okay. And so like, I'll skip that one, I guess. And what, do you guys have any idea what monitoring this will entail labor-wise? Like, are we expecting bylaw will be the ones doing this, or who would be doing
It'd be
this?
EPCOR.
Oh, EPCOR, okay.
EPCOR, as part of their monitoring, the cammering process, when there's a problem, there's a backup, we go and they investigate, and then we route it out and we pay for that. But their general cammering throughout our system, they'll pick it up on that as well. And you can see where the grease actually, if you actually watch these sewer videos, which I've done a lot of, you can actually see the grease come down through the surface, and you can see it start building up after. It's really exciting.
So you're not talking about monitoring, like where you go into, say, a restaurant and make sure that they're using their trap properly or something like that?
There could be some of that. We could end up getting, that's in the bylaw or what we want to do. We could put that level where we actually go in and do a monitoring, make sure that, you can have a grease trap and never use it, right? Or you can have a grid and never empty it, so it's not effective, right?
So this, in part, raises another question, and we've been talking a little bit about the land use bylaw. If we never ask for development permits for changes of use, the development will never change. If we're saying that all permitted uses in the downtown or wherever don't need a development permit because it's going from one permitted use to another, we're never going to get a grease trap if we get a restaurant.
Okay, so that was kind of my next question. So like, this would be for just newly built buildings and not for, if a restaurant happens to open up in an existing building, you guys wouldn't, because that wouldn't require a development permit?
Well, I think that currently there's a gray area there. Typically, permitted uses have generally not had a development permit if it's the same use. I think it's a question that needs to be asked in the new bylaw, and certainly if it's a development permit, if it's a change of use from an office to a restaurant, I would expect to see that. I can't speak for the administration as a whole, but I would say that's the way you fix things over time. You bring them into alignment. You bring them into alignment with the codes of the day. Otherwise, you're looking at a building that was built 100 years ago and has never been fixed.
Okay. So one of the questions, I have two other, if you don't mind. So one of the things that I saw was had to do with like ongoing communication. What would that entail exactly?
I think where this is similar to, I live in the city of Calgary, they have the utility inserts, putting an insert in there about don't dump your fats and grease down your sink.
Okay.
Right, that kind of continuous in communication through, just education the public, because if you don't know, that's a bad thing. If no one ever told you never to dump your bacon grease down your sink, then not a big deal, right? You'll do it. But if you put in the utility, maybe I'll just put it, I can put that in my organic bin, right? That kind of thing.
Okay, and last but maybe least, what does childcare facility mean in this particular instance?
daycares.
So even like a day home or something like that, or?
Careful how you define day home.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay away from regulating anything that looks after 6 or less kids
Okay,
through the land use bylaw. But certainly anything 7 to 15 would be a minor. Now, over 15, you can get 150 kids.
okay. So like the 7 to 15, like would you expect to see one put in there, or would it have to be like bigger?
You know, I'm gonna say that I haven't written the sanitary bylaw, and I'd be reluctant to comment on that, because typically the 7 to 15 is gonna be in an existing home.
Okay,
You know, that's what it's aimed at. It's something that you can put in a larger house in an R1 district without a lot of fuss. The minute that you go over 15, and it's an arbitrary number, you need a corner lot just to park people, you know, when they're picking up and dropping off. And 15 has been a fairly common number to use. You're going from something that's okay in a neighborhood and is probably tolerable, even to the next door neighbor, to something that probably needs a rezoning and should be either in a church or in a commercial building or in an institutional building.
okay. All right, well, thank you very much for answering my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Mel, did you want to say anything that might tie into what Councillor Montgomery was discussing?
Yes, I'd like to just comment that the City of Calgary, for in excess of 10 years now, have been surcharging industrial and commercial users where their sewer waste has been measured and monitored, and if it exceeds certain limits, there's surcharges that are applied right to the utility bill. No discussion, it's just applied as per their bylaw or whatever document that they have in place.
Thank you, Mel. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my question's more on 100% I agree with you on future businesses and so on and so forth, but I'm kind of concerned about number 7, where you're asking for these grease removal devices to be installed, and all of the facilities you've listed. How much do these cost? How much is this going to hurt those potential businesses?
Well, I don't think it's gonna hurt any existing business. If you have an office building in the downtown and you wanna convert it to a restaurant, you have to put in sanitary and cooking facilities. You're dealing with Alberta Health. The plumbing cost is minor.
Sorry, I'm more concerned about implementing these devices on already existing facilities. So like a seniors facility, for example, you have specifically said nursing homes, blah, blah, blah. What's this going to cost somebody like that?
I don't know. It would depend on the circumstances. It would depend on what they have. We are not, by this policy, requiring anybody to do anything. We are, by this policy, creating a framework so that we can write a bylaw to know what we should be looking at and what we should not be looking at.
Okay.
And I would say, we're not, unless there's an egregious issue, we're not gonna go after the seniors.
Okay.
For obvious reasons. Or a senior's home. On the other hand, if there is an expansion or an addition or a
Right.
renovation, a $200 device is not going to be, in the total scheme of things, a showstopper, I don't think, for anyone.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Worship. Warner, I can always trust you when I look at our agenda to learn something that I never thought I needed to know. And when I was, so when I was going through this and coming to greater understanding and doing some research on it, I found that the Scandinavians refer to this problem that you talk about in terms of terrain and slope as fatbergs. And the things you don't need to know. But one of the other things that I learned from reading those issues that have been dealt with really effectively in the Scandinavian countries and in Dublin, Ireland, is that they've really been able to, over the consistency of this process, been able to identify and manage the process through hydrolysis. And so without creating further harm to environment. They've brought in some really innovative methods to be able to, in fact, look at conversion down the road. And they're looking at esterification and the other thing that the Scandinavian group talked about was that they didn't use the term archaic, but they said that the process of assigning costs to businesses who were doing that was not useful to the existing businesses, that in fact it undermined business and created additional hardship that was not necessary when they were using these new methodologies.
Yeah, and I think that's a classic example of you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So I just, when we go forward in this, I think it would be really useful to look at these examples and to see, and what you said about it not being expensive, to put in the fix for most of these organizations wouldn't be extraordinary.
I think,
especially at the outset.
I think what we have to pay attention to, if I may, is when we have new industrial buildings and they're putting in wash bays, I think we should be asking, you're putting in a truck wash. Oh, are you putting in a sump?
Yeah.
Are you putting in a grit separator? I think we go after those kinds of things. Those would be the priority at the development permit stage. And in the you don't know what you don't know department, I think every carburetor that I've ever installed says, pour a quarter cup of cooking oil, to keep the thing running.
Yeah, some coffee grounds and cooking oil. And further to what Councillor Montgomery was talking about, though, if the material, even if it's trapped, has to go somewhere. And so, what he said earlier about, treating waste after the fact can create a different anomaly, or an anomaly that you don't expect. And so if we could look at, conversion types of, carbolic acid, and we could look at, moisture levels and in terms of fogs, and deal with it right at the source, it'd be a great idea.
Some of the simplest solutions is having a grease catcher, like literally a place to, in some restaurants, you go outside and they have a place where you dump your fats.
Yeah.
Some of our restaurants don't have that.
Yes.
And other ones do, because they get picked up and they get it recycled and they make some money off it. But other businesses just don't even bother doing that because they don't, for whatever reason. It's as simple as getting a bin that they dump their fats in. Right now they don't have it, so what do their staff do? They just dump it down the sink. So that could be, when we talk about retrofit, that could be as simple as that. Education.
Yep. So I've noticed that anytime you approve a Walmart and you're getting, if you're getting a McDonald's, you're going to get an extra bin out back, whether you ask for it or not. And if a McDonald's can fill up one of those bins in a matter of weeks, then certainly a large restaurant can do it in a much shorter period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher and Mark, for your presentation. What I like about this is it puts us in a situation as far as planning for the future to be proactive versus reactive, as far as if we can reduce the amount going into our system, then we'll have to react less times as far as clearing things and doing emergent repairs. So I really like this. If I can ask our Legislative Services, Jan, are we looking for a motion to adopt this policy then? So councillors, if you have no further questions or comments, we're looking for a motion to adopt this fog policy. Councillor Peterson?
Your Worship, might we be a little premature? Might there not be still some work to be done on this in terms of looking at all the alternatives and the fixes? And I just really want to be cautious before we legislate something that has unforeseen outcomes for, potential business, existing business, when there might be some better solutions.
Well, if we could turn that to Mr. Fisher, would this be an overarching general policy, and then you would come forward with the bylaw following that would get more specific then?
Absolutely. We're not going to take action based on a policy. We would take action pursuant to a bylaw. And I think Councillor Peterson, is spot on, that there's some questions to be asked. But for now, we're trying to put some basic borders around what the bylaw might look like.
Okay, thank you. Does that help, Councillor Peterson?
Yes, yeah, and I apologize. It is a good point to make that difference between bylaw and policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Deputy Mayor Sobel?
I'm ready with a motion, Your Worship.
Thank you.
I move that council approve the sanitary sewer fats, oils, and grease, also known as FOG, management policy number 4201.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. Councillors, you've all heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. And that brings us to 7.3, and Mark, you're with us again, the Wildflower Road streetlights on page 23 of the handout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Infrastructure and Development Services is pleased to bring forward a request. We received a citizen communication form earlier this year regarding street lighting around 2 bus stops on Wildflower Road. We were unaware that there was actually bus stops on Wildflower Road, so this was news to us. So we investigated, our engineer went out there and determined that there's two places where they pick up kids where the walkways come out onto Wildflower Road, and there is no lighting. This is the old section, if you look at the map, just south of our Wildflower Reservoir. There's 2 locations shown on the map. Our engineer reviewed it and thought the lights were warranted. However, we have no budget to put this in. And we did get a price from our Fortis, our utility provider, and they provided us a price of about $9,000. On top of this, we had an approved budget for the dog park lights, and we were originally thinking about solar lights because it's a ways away from Fortis. We thought it would be too expensive to bring temporary lighting down from Fortis, and Fortis has informed us that we could do that for less than $5,000 based on their putting 2 temporary lights up. So we have on that budget, we have of the $30,000, we have about $25,000. So we do, if council would approve us to use some of that remaining budget to put these 2 lights, that's where we would fund this out. And we're open for any conversations or comments.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Peterson?
I'm sorry, my light just...
Oh, thank you. Deputy Mayor Sobel?
So I think it's a great idea. I don't have an issue with that. But we're so close to just going around the corner and on Wildflower Road? Nope. It's one that runs east and west, Mark.
Westridge
Is it
Road.
Westridge?
There's a light on the corner right at there's an existing light right at the bridge.
But there's no light between there and
Along the cemetery there?
along I should know that road. Westridge Road.
Westridge Road.
There's no lighting there,
No.
nor is there a sidewalk, by the way.
Yeah.
Drives me crazy. Anyway, but at the very least, is there any contemplation of putting a couple of lights along that road that would keep us within that $25,000 budget?
We can definitely look at, I never knew that was an issue, but we can definitely look into that if council would authorize me to use the remaining budget to expand that lighting to do that. I would look into adding additional lightings along that.
I think it's an issue. I've heard numerous people walking along there with no lights that feel it's a concern at night.
Thank you, Deputy Sobel. Deputy Mayor Sobel, Deputy Mayor Sobel, I agree that area along the cemetery there is quite dark, and that's one of the exit points for Wildflower, and people are starting to walk more and more. I'm sure we'll have to deal with Westridge itself in front of the dealerships and that as far as improvements in sidewalks. But this would at least keep people in a safe area where they can walk with some lighting. So I think is that something, Jen, that we would have to add as far as this motion? To look at lighting within that budget along Westridge Road by the cemetery?
Your worship, my recommendation would be to move the recommendation
Deal
in
with
the
this
report separately.
Thank you.
And then have administration come back with costs for the other lighting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cox.
I just have a small question, kind of through the chair for Jen or Mark or whoever. We approved the improvements to the cemetery. Did we not approve any lighting?
We did not include lighting. In fact, I just looked at, one of our staff members said we need lighting, so we'll bring that forward, yeah.
But that lighting would be within the
That would be within the cemetery,
so
not on the street.
This is more along the street as far as walking outside the cemetery. But yeah, you're right, Councillor Cox, we need to look at the lighting in the cemetery as well. So, are there any other questions? Councillor Bauer, did you have your light on?
I was going to echo what you were saying. I have had numerous residents as well talk to me about how dark it is on Wildflower Road and that there are no sidewalks as well on Westridge. Or no, Wildflower Road, because they have to walk on the road when they're walking their dogs and whatnot. And I would also like to just say, you started your talk this evening saying that we didn't realize that there were no light standards where their bus stops were. Are there other areas, do you think, that we should look at within the town to make sure that there's adequate lighting where there are bus stops and kids present?
We do. We've done quite a few of these throughout the time, and then we add it to our normal budgeting process. So our engineer will go around and finding, because the bus routes do change. And I know Craig has been working with the town, so we're getting better bus routes, so we're identifying more of these. We usually generally want to bring these things for next year, so we get it properly budgeted. This one was a unique situation where we got this and we were so far under budget on the dog part one I wanted to bring forward because it was a great thing for our citizens to bring forward this issue, and we want to address it as quick as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer and Mark. Councillor Peterson?
Your Worship, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Thank you.
I would move that council authorize the additional scope of work estimated at $9,020 for lighting the 2 bus stops on Wildflower Road as described, and that be added to the lighting for the dog park capital project.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Mark, I'd like to thank you and your staff for bringing this forward and reacting positively to the citizen communication form. I think that's what we want, and I think the public will really appreciate that. And I'm sure council is looking forward to the presentation as far as more lighting along Westridge Road. Thank you, which brings us to item 7.4, capital purchase item, loader replacement, and I believe Craig Nichols is speaking to this. Mr. Nichols, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. Just a little bit of background. Currently the town has 3 loaders, one of which is our loader, which is our second primary loader. Unfortunately, this year we've had a lot of extensive repairs to it, and now the engine has failed. It basically has blow-by, which is basically the pistons, oil's getting in the pistons, and it's basically misfiring. It's actually listed on next year's capital replacement budget, and we're hoping that the council will agree to move that capital purchase up 1 year, or it's basically on about 6 months, instead of investing up to $30,000 for a piece of equipment that we're going to be replacing in next year. Unfortunately, what's missing from the report, and I just found out today from my staff, is that this is the second engine replaced on this loader in the past 2 years. And this sort of an inherent bit of a problem. We did get 2 quotes from 2 different vendors who also did the checks on the engine. They both came back with the same findings, which is the engine had to be replaced. One comes with warranty, but it's still going to be about $20,000 to $30,000. The other one's about $20,000 with no warranty. So the Director of Finance has said there is funding available through the, correct me if I'm wrong, Financial Stabilization Fund to be able to move the 2019 capital acquisition up to the 2018.
And there is also, my understanding, MSI of funding available that this qualifies for MSI. It's that big of a capital purchase.
Yeah. The original funding for next year was $275,000. In consultation with a couple of the vendors and the equipment that we use on it, they're recommending that we go with a larger loader because the current one we have is already maximum stressed out when we use the blower. We're at the maximum. And so that's the life expectancy of that loader will probably diminish if we don't start moving it to another piece of equipment. The other thing we found is in the latest snow removal campaign throughout the town was that we're missing a vital piece of equipment, which is basically a snow push, which goes on the front of the loader, and we're able to clear cul-de-sacs. Right now, we don't have that piece of equipment. So we're anticipating what we'd like to do is buy the new loader with the snow push, move the snow push to the existing loader, the John Deere we have, and then put the snow blower on the new acquisition. That allows us massive flexibility to go into cul-de-sacs, which we currently don't have. During the last campaign, we've had to use contractors because the loader is not functioning. And with their snow push and loaders, they were able to assist us clearing out cul-de-sacs a lot faster. So I would request that the council consider our request. So.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Councillor Peterson, I believe, was first.
No,
Montgomery?
It was everybody else, but.
Oh, okay. Councillor Montgomery, and then Councillor Corbeil and Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Worship. So what will happen to the existing loader and how much can we sell it for?
I wouldn't know what we could sell it for. It would go to auction, is basically what we do with the old equipment. We send it through auction.
Okay. And so that 325, that would cover everything?
Yeah, we went and got 2 preliminary budget numbers from 2 of our major vendors, and the pricing came in between 285, 290 to 325. So we're going for the top end just in case, by the time we go out to tender, the existing stock may not be there based on the budgetary quote we got. So.
Okay. And what is the core charge through Rocky Mountain Equipment, and is that for the rebuild as well?
The core charge for Rocky Mountain Equipment, what they do is it's a deposit fee.
Right, I'm wondering what the actual amount is. I guess my point is, is it worth keeping this loader for even just kind of light use or something like that? If it's, going to cost 5% to fix it, basically?
In all honesty, I would say no, because there's other basically mechanical issues that will arise because of the age of it. It's 12 years, 13 years old.
Yeah.
We've already invested almost $67,000 this year on replacing other components.
67?
6 to 7.
Oh, 6 to 7. Okay.
So, and from that point of view, that's why we're looking at sort of a 6-month window, trying to push it up to start the replacement 6 months earlier.
Okay.
By the time we get the tender out through APC, quotes back in, we won't get acquisition of it till probably in the summertime.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. So if the motor was just replaced in it?
My understanding I don't have specifics, we don't have a good asset tracking system right now, which is what we're hoping to move towards. But my understanding from the staff is it was about 2 years ago, 2 to 2.5 years ago.
And no warranty on that, obviously, then?
No. Actually, in these ones, the new motor from the one vendor is only going to give us 6 months warranty on it. A rebuild, they're going to give 24-month warranty on it. And then the other vendor, there was absolutely no warranty on it.
Okay. And then my other question, sorry, I'm new or whatever, so I'm really not sure of the, if this is actually common or not, but it's not very good business practice. Is there anything else that we can give up to purchase this? Do you know what I'm saying? Any other capital assets that we can live without until next year? So, you know what I mean? It's not great business to go and spend $325,000 on a new thing and we don't have that money yet. So I was just wondering if there's anything that we can even, live without until 2019 to kind of swap it out.
The only capital purchase that we haven't gone through with is the single axle dump truck, which unfortunately is also having mechanical issues. The electrical system, we've had sent it to MERS twice, once last week and then once before. So that's on its last legs, and that's the other piece of equipment we need to replace as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Mel, in our mailboxes this week was a letter from the Minister of Municipal Affairs saying that we had an increase in our MSI funding, assuming that's what what Mr. Rowe is referring to. And it's not a joke, it's not a repeat of the third time of a ministerial announcement. I just want to make absolutely sure.
It is, our information is that it is extra funding from the province.
So this is new 2.1 million in additional funding?
That is correct.
And so I guess you have to have this piece of equipment. I think it's great that if we could plow snow in our cul-de-sacs, that would be even better. And in relation to Councillor Corbeil's statement, don't try to trick us and bring another, $275,000 back on next year's budget. But having said that, Your Worship, I'm prepared to make the motion.
Okay, did anyone else have a comment before that? I guess we can still discuss it.
We can still discuss it.
So yes,
sure.
I'm ready to hear your motion.
I would move that council approve the acquisition of the scheduled front-end loader to, and increase the budget on that to $325,000 to acquire a loader to accommodate the snow blower and purchase an 8-foot to 12-foot expandable push blower as part of the tendered process. And that the budget for the new, should we bring it from financial stabilization or can we take it from MSI? Yeah, that, I would prefer to do that, yeah, so that the budget come from MSI.
Thank you. And Councillor Peterson, this is from the new MSI that Mel is saying has been approved?
Well,
Thank
MSI
you.
is MSI, it'll all be in one, yeah.
Thank you.
But I think Mark is showing that there might be an error in the motion.
I was thinking that this was the motion you made.
All right.
Or maybe it was just.
I was going at the recommendation at the bottom. So yes, that is the motion to be taken from MSI.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson, and thank you for adding the MSI part, the clarification. You've all heard the motion. Is there any discussion or comments? Councillor Bauer?
May I please ask how much we would be saving by purchasing that piece of equipment to do the cul-de-sacs rather than putting that out to tender or to another company?
Just trying to think off the top of my head, we're charged about $125 to $145 an hour for the contractor to supply us with the piece of equipment. The numbers for the snow removal aren't finalized yet, but all I can say is they basically worked 8 to 10 hours a day over the last 8 days, so that's fairly chunky.
But in addition, this snowplow, we used it earlier in the year in some of the other neighborhoods where we just needed to push the snow and then then you can dump it off and then load it onto the truck instead of having a grader come in. There's just gives them a lot more flexibility on how they remove, even on our priority roads, how they can remove snow. So it's not just for cul-de-sacs. It actually, the first time we used it was in the second snowfall we got last year, and it was amazing because they were able to push it down, put it in a pile, then dump off the front thing, put the other bucket on, lift it, dump it in their thing, and we were able to get that done in half the time that we normally would do.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Cox, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. You heard me gasp earlier. The reason I gasped was because I just attended an asset management course, and I do have information for you for an asset management worksheet. Very friendly and free.
4 pages?
No, it's free.
Little information is a danger. So.
Yeah, more information. And I also believe that from this course, there's also some grant money available if we do provide our asset management plan. A little extra money.
Yep, thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Cox. So you're saying that this asset management plan could come to administration and maintenance and staff, and then it could help formulate a policy as we look forward and as we move forward? Okay, thank you. So we'll get you to share that with everyone then. Okay. So you've all heard the motion, Deputy Mayor Sobel?
Very, very quick comment. I don't think it's a coincidence to see that our present front-end loader is blowing its engine because it's pushing a snow blower. It's underpowered, so we just, very simply, we just need a larger unit. It's unfortunate, but if we're going to continue to want to use our snow blower, we're going to need a larger front-end loader.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. You've all heard the motion on the floor. All in favor? Motion is carried. And that brings us to 7.5, the Third Avenue upgrades, page 31, infrastructure and development services. Mustafa, are you speaking to this? Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today I'm presenting the Third Avenue Streetscape on behalf of the Infrastructure and Development Services Department. So in early 2018, early 2018, Council was presented some ideas for the 3rd Street upgrade. 3 ideas were presented, comments, and were gathered from Council. As well, we did some public consultations, so we did an open house. We also did some public information booths, surveys, and as well as walking the streets and talking to businesses to see what their input was in regards to that. In front of you guys, you would see a copy of the up-to-date design incorporating all those comments. So some of the main comments that we did receive from the open house and the survey and everything was in regards to parking. It did state that parking was the most important in regards to stalls. As well, people want to see, the community itself wants to see wider stalls. They also talked about public areas, more furniture, greenery, and public safety. So those were the main outputs of those surveys and comments. The one biggest thing we did get is they want to keep parking, right, as much as they can. So currently in front of you is what's existing in 3rd Avenue itself. Highlighted in the blue is just some of those areas, some properties that are encroaching. So we are going to have some tough conversations with some property owners just in regards to encroachment and to ensure that everything flows smoothly and we have the full width of our road. Next is our proposed design, incorporating all the comments and everything that we gathered. So if you look at the design itself, in regards to configuration, you won't see anything major. The biggest thing you will see is we did move the angle parking from the north side to the south side. Reasoning for that is just because we have less entries, so less entries to the parking lots and everything, so we can have more parking spaces. In the block west, so between 2nd and 3rd Street, there is more greenery, the wider sidewalks, more plaza areas. Address some safety concerns that we did get from the businesses in regards to that plaza right across from the co-op. They said that some people were driving over the sidewalks just to get into the parking lot. So one thing we did do is we installed trees and shrubberies and greeneries. So there's about 4 trees there that will act as a buffer so people won't drive over there. And what we're hoping to do is also get council a little bit more involved in the design process. So we have about 4 options here for you guys to look at. So if you look at the proposed design in front of you, you'll see detail A, B, C, and D. So currently, as it stands, the details are what they are in the drawings. The consultant themselves has proposed 4 additional modifications that we can make. So we just want to get council's input into that and see which options you guys like. If you want to incorporate any of the new ones or just keep it as it is. So the first one would be section 1 or detail A. So detail A, option A is what's existing. Option B is what's proposed. So option B is what you would see on 2nd Avenue with the 2 trees along the streets for it itself. So section 2, as well as it'll be detail B over there. So option A is existing and it's on the design right now. That's also what you would see on 2nd Avenue. The other modification that they made here was basically shorten the plaza area so you can get an additional parking stall. Section 3, which is also detail C on the drawing. Currently over there is the 2 parking stalls. You would lose the 2 parking stalls, but we would add more greenery, shrubbery, and the trees. And then section 4, which is detail D on the drawing. Option A is the current option on there. Option B is proposed. So you would lose 3 parking stalls, but you would get a better entrance to Kinsman Park. So you would be adding 3 more trees, more shrubbery, more greenery, but that comes at a cost of 3 parking stalls. And we're just still on to questions and comments.
Deputy Mayor Sobel?
Thank you. Thanks, Mustafa. That's, I'm very confused now, but anyway. But one question I do have is, is any of the plans we go with, is there a maximum of 4 handicap spaces?
Yeah, so currently in the downtown itself, there's 2 parking stalls.
On 3rd Ave?
On 3rd Ave itself that are designated as handicap. One is located right next to the southeast corner, which is across from Kim's. And the other one is located at right across, I believe, it's the massage therapy or spot right there. So currently there's 2, but we've incorporated 4 in this design right now.
But none on 3rd Ave?
None on 3rd Ave. I knew that question would come up. So on the next slide itself is just some areas that we have designated that if council wishes to add handicap parking stalls on 3rd Ave, those were the areas that we saw that would be the most beneficial. In regards to that, because we do have the handicap stalls on the streets, we try to focus more on the central location. So if you see 2 of the stalls are right in the center. So your first one in between 2nd and 3rd is right in between, I believe it's called the Red Carrot and that business area. That way it'll be, that first parking stall will be able to function and help those businesses for a handicap stall. The other thing we did do for the avenue is at the lakeside end, we could also put handicap stalls as the first stalls on those corners, and then one in the center.
That's what I guess I was looking for, is because there's nothing down that end.
Yeah, so in it itself there isn't, but if council does wish, we could add those locations on there.
That would be my preference thing.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. Councillor Peterson?
So when I hear the term business owner and encroachment, I get really, really nervous. So that's something, before I made any decision, I'd have to have more information, more specific information about.
It's just like they have flower beds and stuff that go past their property line. What we would do is just fix up those flower beds just so our sidewalks are right next to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not moving into the actual bump out, like
No.
bump ins on the.
No, it's just basically a lot of them have flower beds that are where our sidewalks are supposed to be. So we did have that on 2nd as
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
There was a couple locations, so all we did was just talk to the business owners and kind of explain to them.
Yeah, those are minor, yeah. The other issue, after all has been said and done on 2nd, and I now see primarily that the pros are much, much greater than the cons. The single outstanding issue relates to handicap parking.
Yes.
And the issue with having the handicap parking on the streets with signage that say handy bus, that when people see that, I referenced one specific on the west side of the Standard Shoe Shop, people believe that that means that only the handy bus can park there.
Yeah.
They interpret that absolutely.
For sure.
And they follow it. 90% of people who have handicap signs in their vehicles or handicap stickers are not in wheelchairs. Their difficulty is in walking distances. So putting our handicap parking on our streets does not serve 90% of our handicap population. So when I see the handicapped areas that you've put in, I haven't had a chance to really examine it or look at it, but I think that one of the things that I see that Edmonton has done and other communities as well, in front of specific businesses frequented particularly by seniors, they've put up courtesy signs. And they apparently have worked very, very well, better than legislating. And so I really see that as something that we could look at. And I don't think that we'll face the same issues on 3rd, specifically that we did on 2nd, but I do think that we should think about it as one when we go back to it. I really appreciate the work you've done on this. Thank you.
So just in regards to that standard shoe shop, so that first area is designated for the handy bus. We are missing a sign for the handicap stall, which would be the next one over.
And I know, I've said it many times before, but seniors continue to ask specifically for some kind of signage and preferred signage, or even in front of the drugstore.
Drugstore.
Sure. We'll look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson, Councillor Cox, and then Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, again, I like that you've heard everybody. I 100% agree on the handicap stalls. I like what you've done. I mean, I would like to see you do a little bit more on the one that's already done. Second half, is that right?
Yes.
So, if we can implement that at the same time, we're doing that. My concern or my question goes to time. Every single business that I talked to at the open house was very concerned about timing and how long it was going to take. They were very concerned with how long it took on Second and they don't even want that much time. So are we in a position, because of ripping up, we're going to be shorter? Can we give them some kind of a time frame? Do you know a time frame?
So we have assured the business owners that it won't take as long as Second. The reason why Second took so long was because we did add a brand new storm line. So we do have an existing storm line already there. So we will not rip up the road in regards to excavation. They should see about a week, I would say less than a week, where the road will be closed, and that's just to basically mill the roads, and then we can put a top lift on the road. But in regards to the road being closed, I would say no longer than a week.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Montgomery? And then Corbeil.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. So I guess like my only question just has to do with west of 3rd Street. Are we just going to be replacing the lighting or something like that to match the existing style that we have on 2nd?
On Lakeside Boulevard?
Like just west of 3rd Street on 3rd Ave? Because like we're not doing anything to the sidewalks west of 3rd Street, are we?
So if I remember correctly, and Mark can correct me on this one, currently Phase 2 just ends on 3rd Street.
Right.
Phase 3 was going to be the interlocking streets if we do present that later on. And then Phase 4 it was going to be the continuous of 2nd Ave and 3rd Ave all the way to the highway. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a couple questions. When you did your surveys and stuff like that, what was the majority, A, B, C, or D, that they were, I guess the public was wanting to go with?
So in regards to those options that were presented to you guys,
Yep.
those options weren't presented to us at that time. These are new options that were presented to us when we received these drawings a few days ago.
Okay, then, did what we presented to them doesn't exist anymore? Like, I'm
So
not...
what we presented to them is the existing drawing that you see in front of you. What we did was we showed the idea of what it could look like.
Okay.
Right? So from their input, we came up with this concept.
Okay. And then my other question is, do you know when it would start?
So our goal is for it itself, after council here, what we are going to do is we are going to go through the businesses, present them with this new design if council chooses to go with the design that's presented in front of them, get their comments and feedback, see if there's anything major that they see wrong with it. Right after that, we are going to be going out for our tender for construction.
Okay.
So that'll be posted around 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then they should start construction right after, weather permitting.
And then my last question, sorry. This doesn't interfere with anybody's business or office or anything, does it?
We're going to make it accessible. If we are ripping something up, we'll make it accessible to the business. So.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Just a general question, just to my councillors, our councillors. Does everyone feel comfortable with seeing what you're seeing? We got this tonight just before the meeting. Are you comfortable, and do you feel confident in understanding what's being presented? Councillor Peterson, did you have a comment?
I just had an additional concern. One of the public members of the public, Brian Code, came forward. He has considerable knowledge about trees and such, and he had questions about the flowering crab and the mess they make and that they're susceptible to fire blight.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if we'd considered anything else.
Yeah, so in regards to that, we did go to our park supervisor and asked him about the option as well as our landscape architect.
Yeah.
They said for the area that we are and the weather and the climate that we're in, these are the best trees to have for them to bloom and everything like that. So in regards to where we are and the nature and the weather, these are the best trees.
Who did they consult? Just out of curiosity.
It's our landscape architect, right? So our landscape architect through our consultant. They were the ones making the selection.
And they live here?
They live in Calgary. But we also talked to Dave Rhymes in regards to the options as well, and he said those are basically the best.
I think we should look a little further. I would just say that we maybe consult Eagle Lake Nursery and some of our local nurseries that have extensive experience, and wouldn't hurt to get a second and third opinion.
Yeah, no worries about that.
And in answer to your question, Councillor Fuel, I don't know that I've had enough time to, in looking at this, or that I'm uniquely qualified to make a decision. I guess if I had to choose from what I'm looking at, I would choose probably B at this point. And the only other thing, we talked about how we could create better conduits for our walking public from 2nd Avenue to 3rd Avenue. And I don't see any consideration of that in this. I know it came from several of the 3rd Avenue business owners, that idea of putting a walkway through the co-op parking, existing Orange Realty co-op business center. No, what is it called? The Strathmore Business Center parking lot. I don't know if those are any options.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Ryan, maybe you have a comment?
Your Worship, with regards to discussions with I'm going to call it the co-op, but the Strathmore Business Center, I've entered negotiations with them to discuss options there, so it's not included in this plan because it's contingent on some potential land swaps. However, it's
under consideration.
We're going through those processes
Thank
now.
you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Your Worship, I also agree with Councillor Peterson. If we need to make decisions to move forward with a plan, I opt for detail B.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. And Councillor Corbeil, did you have anything, or you're okay? So, councillors. Deputy Mayor Silva?
I love to make a motion, but I'm just reading and I'm not sure what that means. For the following section, proceed.
Well, we can go into each section and then you guys can decide which one you want to do.
I'm sorry?
We can go into the following, like I can go to each section and you guys can decide option A or B, and then we'll just list
That
them.
would be, I think that would be much more clear.
Am I reading this correctly, that detail A, if we went with option B, that would be losing those 2 handicap stalls? Or they would just get pushed back?
They would get pushed back.
Okay.
That's all it'd be.
Okay, we would lose 2 parking spots in place of those?
I would say half a parking slot on each side, but
Okay.
yeah. Just because we have a hatch area where the entrances, so the driveways go,
Okay.
you just move that over.
Okay.
So, Mustafa, are you going to lead us as far as the presentation of these sections and then have us decide, and then we can put it into the motion, I guess, following?
Sure. So section 1, so option A is existing and option B is proposed, so that's what you see on second.
Sorry, so with option B for detail A, would we see those like, I don't know what to call it exactly, but kind of like a ramp or whatever on the sidewalk, just pushed down farther?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the one thing we have implemented in the 3rd Ave itself is anywhere that we do have a handicap stall, we're including a ramp with it as well.
Okay, excellent.
So are we going to just get an idea of which option you're looking for in each section, councillors, and then we're going to just have someone come forward with the motion for all? Is that what you're comfortable with?
I'm depending on Councillor
Thanks.
Sorry, can I?
Councillor Cox.
So which one of this gives us more parking?
Option A.
A. I say A.
Mustafa, can I ask you a question? How time sensitive is this for tonight? Because I'm a little concerned that there's confusion here, and I do not want us to rush into any kind of decision that's going to be affected later. Brian?
Your worship, with regards to time, we are well ahead of last year's schedule.
Mhm.
If council would be comfortable doing a rise and report at next week's committee of the whole, which
I think that would be.
I have to buy beer for everyone, but
That's okay. I would much rather have you buy beer and have us be, I would rather have us be very sure in what we're trying to go forward
we could
with.
certainly put this item again, and then that would give council the extra week to do that. Committee of the whole is also a bit more informal, so a bit more suited for a discussion. So if the council wants that, it doesn't put the project in a sort of time.
Good. I think that would be much, much better for the community, much better for us to make the proper decision going forward. So do we need then a motion, Jan, as far as carrying this forward to committee of the whole next week?
Yes, Your Worship. It would be to postpone discussion to committee of the whole.
Thank you. So councillors, I'm looking for a motion to postpone discussion on this until the April 11th committee of the whole. Councillor Corbio?
I move that we put this to committee of the whole for discussion.
Thank you, and it'll be on April 11th, 2018 then? You've all heard that motion, councillors? All in favor? So the motion has been made and carried to carry this over to April 11th committee of the whole meeting. Councillor Cox, did you vote? All in favor? Did you vote? Okay. Is there anyone opposed? So we're all in favor, the motion is carried, and it's going to be brought forward at April 11th Committee of the Whole. Which brings us to the 7.6 item, Seniors Advisory Committee appointment on page 33.
With Bob, many Strathmore district vision
Item 12, questions between councillors and/or council statements. Councillor Montgomery.
I just have a question about like that policy that we recently changed with regards to council committees. Are we supposed to provide a written report? Okay, I just want a clarification on that.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Cox?
I also require some clarification on that. Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I can provide clarification. I believe the amendment to the procedure bylaw was that when councillors giving reports from committees on which they sit, they are to submit a written report to be attached to the minutes for approval at the next council meeting.
Thank you. Is that good, Councillor Cox? It's not good?
Can I have further clarification?
Sure. Jen?
Both of the two committees that I sit on have minutes and agendas. Can I submit those?
No, Your Worship. No, yes, you can, sorry. For internal, we do, administration includes them on the agenda, but for any external committees that council sits on, they can be included for information on the agenda.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Councillor Peterson.
Just in relation to that, so we've asked the Wheatland Housing Authority to send their ratified minutes to you for inclusion, so that's happening, I'm assuming. I know one time we had the wrong minutes, but I think it's been happening.
Your Worship, I would have to look into that, but I definitely will. And if council so chooses, we can include those on the agenda for information.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councillor Montgomery, for your question. Item 13, administrative inquiries. Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Peterson has one more.
Just before we go to administrative inquiries, Your Worship, I just wanted to say that there is a group called Prospect Services who will be moving to Strathmore. They are a service provider. And so they are the group that we dealt with last year, where the previous mayor and some of councillors were meeting with a group who were coming into the community to establish services to underemployed persons. So they now have secured that contract. They will be moving very soon into the Strathmore Business Centre, and they will be providing out of there. Prospect is a service provider that's had lots of history in our community previously and have had significant success, so I'm really looking forward to them. They will provide services to a formerly underserved community, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Which brings us to item 13, administrative inquiries. Jennifer?
Thank you, Worship. There are 4 inquiries this evening. The first is from Councillor Sobel in regards to green cards. It reads, is it possible to get an update on the green card program? Number one, when are the cards set to arrive? Number 2, when are the cards scheduled to be delivered to residences? Number 3, when is the educational portion of this program scheduled to start? And number 4, when is the program scheduled to begin?
Your Worship, I'd like to answer that question right away here. I'm pleased to announce that we've secured carts from IPL, and they are scheduled to be delivered on May 15th. We will be commencing our formal communication plan next week with a video starting produced by Waste Management on April 23rd at the latest. That's when it'll be done, and then we'll be putting that up on our social media. We plan to have the carts delivered the last week in May with a functional day of June 1st, with the first pickup being June the 4th, which is the Monday. So hopefully that answers all 4 of those points.
That's mine, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That's very clear, very concise, and I think it's really good for our community as we move forward. Jennifer?
Thank you. There's 3 more. The second is also from Councillor Sobel in regard to fire hydrants and snow. The inquiry reads, the rather impressive snowfall fall our community has received this year has brought with it many difficulties that our staff have had to deal with. One issue that I do not feel has received sufficient attention is in regards to fire hydrants and the fact that some are still completely covered with snow. My question is, who is responsible for removal of snow from fire hydrants? My concern lies with our firefighters not being able to access or locate a fire hydrant in an emergency situation. Second is in regards to private road maintenance. It reads, as a result of considerable social media comments, I decided to venture upon a private road which leads south from the intersection of Archie Kleiber Road and Center Street and into the Ranch Market shopping area. This road, which is 2 lanes with no sidewalk, is considered somewhat unsafe at the best of times. At present, however, potholes are forcing vehicles to veer out, and a number of near misses with oncoming traffic have occurred. Certainly, my drive along the first 300 meters of that road were concerning. My question is whether, considering this is a private road, but with very open and inviting access to the public, the town has any jurisdiction over its condition.
Ryan, did you want to speak to that?
With regards to that, I too have driven that road and it is unpleasant. So we've I had staff contact the property management company out of Vancouver, and they'll be looking to get that cleaned up pretty quick. So yeah, that was just, yeah.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sobel.
And thank you for that. This is not the first time we've had to deal with this type of scenario in that particular location, and I even understand that the administration went as far on at least one occasion where they've sent our own staff there to fill the potholes and then bill the management company. But I guess I'm just looking to clarify whether or not we have any jurisdiction, any powers in regards to that. Certainly if it becomes a situation where our vehicles and our constituents are in danger, then I would assume we could go to Alberta Transportation and shut the road down, which is a pretty drastic step. But do you know of anything else that we can do?
Your Worship, with regards to that, we'd have to check the easement carefully, but I would venture to suggest that probably not. It's sort of just using soft power from the town, and as we've done in the past, filling the potholes and billing them. What I think we can discuss with the property or with the management company would be if they're open to modifying the easement to allow the town a bit more leeway in terms of maintaining it. However, the concern there would be then that the town begins to accept a degree of liability for the condition of the road. So it may be something that we'll talk to the property management company about. However, it's a difficult one to get powers for the town on.
It is, if I could, it is, and what bothers me more is that's not the only area that we have this situation in, so we should, I don't know, try to come to some kind of policy that we have, because if it's going to be strictly us filling the holes and them paying for it, nothing is going to compel them to pay for this.
Your Worship, it's probably I'm using waffling language. It would be worthwhile for the town to consider developing a policy regarding private roads, not just with these sort of extant ones, but as well when discussions come up about other private roads that are going to serve a large amount of traffic. Probably worthwhile in the future, the town even considering whether it's worthwhile allowing these to be created. So probably over the next 6 months, I'd like to talk to my engineering team about developing a private road type policy for Strathmore.
I would agree, because the issue keeps coming back anyway, so we might as well have something in place to deal with it. Thank you.
Councillor Montgomery, did you want to add something?
Yeah, if I could just, if we were to do anything at this point, I would say even maybe just putting up a sign that tells people it's a private road and it's like privately maintained, and okay, well then, I guess, yeah, then they shouldn't be complaining to us probably if it's that obvious, so.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Thank you. Last inquiry reads, it's in regard to Canadian Badlands sign. It reads, what seems like years ago, Council of the Day expressed interest in sharing the cost of a Canadian Badlands sign with that organization. The suggestion of the day was that the sign would go next to our present Welcome to Strathmore signs at the east and west entrances to our municipality. A further suggestion was that the date of our municipality incorporation and our present population be two of the features of this sign. About 18 months ago, this project was handed over to administration to produce a schematic drawing of sorts, which could then be reviewed by council. My question is where does this project presently sit?
Thank you. And there are no further administrative inquiries? Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the public portion, and looking for a motion to go in camera. Councillor Corbeil?
I move we go to in camera.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And we're going in camera at 8:55 p.m.